Daniel with Gimmonix in Israel. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Give us an overview of the travel sectors your clients are in and their challenges.
And so most of our clients right now are either OTAs or they have to do with B2B travel, tour operators, some holiday divisions for airlines, and also on the supplier side, there's many interesting things that we do for hotel suppliers themselves. So the very first challenge is, let's take the example of an OTA. How do you connect to a large enough pool of suppliers to be competitive in the hotel space? Because you do need a big coverage, and you need a lot of different prices for the same property in order to show a consumer competitive price in the industry. And so your first challenge is, how do you connect to all of them? And you do that via API integration. So, but each of these integrations cost somewhere around $20,000 to $30,000 and could take, up to 3 months to develop, and you need quite the expertise and team to deal with all that stuff. And so if you want to sell hotels online, you have to somehow connect to all these different players. Like, there's no way around it. And then the second problem is hotel mapping. You probably know a little bit about it, but basically what happens is, if you're working with an aggregated supply pool, the different providers have different names for the same hotel. They have different IDs for the same hotel. If one supplier calls a Hilton in Paris, another supplier might call it, a Paris Hilton. And a third supplier may call it Hilton Deluxe or whatever. And
right.
So in order to not show your customer 15 of the same hotel and actively compare prices from within your inventory, you have to do what we call mapping. And so Gimmonix has been very innovative in that space, and we were the first to use AI and machine learning in order to achieve proper mapping. Whereas before, you'd have a supplier that mainly, like a third-party mapping supplier, that mainly relied on taking a set list of supplier that they deem important and manually going and saying, this hotel matches that hotel and this hotel matches that hotel. Because we use AI and machine learning, we can take basically any supplier, any system, and map it. So we were the first to offer that kind of a solution, and it made a vast change in the hotel mapping landscape. And not only that, but what we can do is we actually automated the process of mapping. If you look at a supplier like Expedia, for example, they make somewhere around 20,000 changes to their inventory on a weekly basis. Now, if you're not mapping that, you don't keep up with their inventory, meaning you can't actually sell what they're giving you. So Expedia is both an OTA, but also a supplier, right? So you're working with them as an OTA. You're the OTA. They're the supplier. And now they have a bunch of hotels that change names, change addresses, change a whole bunch of, I don't know, whatever it is that can change. And now you don't have the proper ID or name with Expedia anymore to know that they have this hotel that you can then show your customer. Does that make sense?
Okay. Lots of things changes. Best Western, Bangkok, Sukhumvit changes, new owners or vice versa. IDs change. Inventories change from the hotel. Expedia puts it out at different prices to different customers, different channels. So all these things need to be managed and be tied to some ID that is that remains constant.
Right. So if all of these things change and your system doesn't recognize the change, and that's what you map for, then you can't actually sell any of the properties that change.
Took how many years, from which year to which year, for you to perfect?
I think that somewhere around 2015, we have perfected it. And you know, nothing is ever perfect. We're constantly working to improve
Sure.
it. But we've gotten to a pretty good point where we have, you know, almost 100% coverage ratio, which means that we cover almost the entire inventory in terms of mapping, almost the entire inventory for a given supplier. And
Right.
that's comparing to most other mapping providers on the market, which only cover around 65%, right, in the market. Without connecting and then mapping, you can't sell anything. And so
Yep.
that's why I'm saying that we're in the perfect position right now for anybody who sells hotels online from an aggregated supply pool to kind of like solve the first two challenges that you have to tackle. One of the cool things that I can tell you about mapping, for example, in 2017, Expedia approached us and they understood the importance of being properly mapped as a hotel supplier, not OTA. They understood the importance of their distribution partners being mapped to them in order for them to properly distribute their inventory. That they came to us in order to develop a solution, whereas they are able to incentivize their distribution partners to map themselves to Expedia. And we provided them with a white label solution so they can now send their partners there and they go in and map their inventories against Expedia. And then that has done wonders for their partners' performance with them, meaning Expedia as a hotel supplier now sells more products through their distribution partners solely due to having better mapping. And this is something that a lot of people in the industry don't understand about mapping. Having mapping is not just a thing that you solve in order to sell something. Having the higher the quality of your mapping is actually crucial for your bottom line. We work with smaller players providing simplified solutions, kind of like out of the box connectivity mapping, all-in-one solution, which is basically Travolutionary, that fits small to medium-sized businesses. And then we also work with much larger players to provide solutions that are more custom.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Sure, thank you.